If you started Witch's Apocalyptic Journey thinking it's just another stylish roguelike, prepare yourself, because this game hides far more depth than it seems in the first few runs. And look, it's not just about reflexes. There are many crucial decisions the game simply doesn't explain to you. I personally lost several runs until I started to understand what really makes a difference here. So today, I'm going to show you 10 advanced tips that completely changed how I play, from how to build more consistent decks to strategies that keep you alive much longer in this apocalyptic chaos. If you want to stop struggling and start truly mastering the game, stick around until the end. If there's one thing that separates average runs from truly broken ones in Witch's Apocalyptic Journey, it's understanding that the game isn't just about the deck, it's about planning. The fate system seems, at first glance, somewhat chaotic, almost as if you're just reacting to what comes your way. But when you realize you can organize these events before moving across the map, the game changes completely. I started to improve for real when I stopped relying on luck and began treating each fate card as a strategic piece. It's not just, oh, a fight appeared, let's go. It's thinking, do I want this fight now, or is it more worth it to hold off and fit in a rest before? This control over the timeline gives you an absurd advantage because you decide the pace of the run, not the game. One thing that makes a huge difference is the order of events. Placing a shop or a rest before facing an elite or boss isn't just a good idea, it's often what determines whether you survive or die there. I've had runs that seemed lost, but by simply rearranging the path and fitting in a rest before a difficult combat, I managed to completely turn the situation around. Mastering the fate system is almost like playing chess with the game map itself. You start to predict problems before they happen and prepare the ground for when they arrive. And then the game ceases to be a chaotic roguelike and becomes something much more strategic and, honestly, much more satisfying to master. When you start using crystals of truth to create your own cards, you stop depending on luck and start shaping your deck exactly the way you want. In practice, you aren't just upgrading your deck, you're designing an entire strategy from the ground up, which is absurdly powerful in a roguelike. What's most interesting is how this breaks the traditional logic of progression. Instead of waiting to find a strong card, you simply create something better than the game would normally offer. Replacing basic cards with customized versions makes a huge difference because it eliminates deck weaknesses and increases consistency. That bad hand feeling practically disappears when you control what enters your deck. Now, the real secret lies in how you use this to build synergies. It's not just about creating isolated strong cards, but thinking about how they interact with each other. When you start combining specific effects, scalable damage, resource generation, cost reduction, the deck begins to run almost automatically. That's where the broken builds emerge, which feel unfair because they are so efficient. To me, this mechanic is the heart of the game at an advanced level. It rewards those who experiment and understand the systems well, not just those who play well in combat. If you master the use of crystals of truth with blank cards, there comes a point where each run stops being about survival and becomes the execution of a plan, and that changes the experience completely. This magic bomb combo tip is truly one of the most powerful and intelligent strategies in Witch's Apocalyptic Journey, and it makes perfect sense that it's so cited by the community and on Steam itself as one of the best approaches for dominating bosses. What fascinates me personally about this strategy is how it transforms the game's resource accumulation mechanic into something almost cinematic. You are basically building a silent magic bomb that at the exact right moment explodes with massive damage and instantly wipes out the boss. The beauty of this approach lies in its conceptual simplicity but execution depth. By concentrating all your effects, relics, blessings, and damage cards onto a single target card, you create a focal point so intense that you can break the resistance barriers of the toughest bosses. This is especially valuable in a roguelike where time is limited and you need bursts of power to resolve complex battles in a few turns without relying on distributed damage that can be ineffective against high-health enemies. From a strategic standpoint, this tip completely changes how you think about deck building. Instead of trying to have balanced cards for all situations, you are creating a nuclear weapon within your own deck, something that only activates when you have enough resources to fuel that single target burst card. It's as if the game gives you permission to be extravagant and focused, taking away the pressure of having to be perfect at everything and allowing you to be absolutely devastating in one thing alone. This magic bomb strategy perfectly reflects the essence of Witch's Apocalyptic journey as a cooperative deck-building roguelite. You can create unique supercards, manipulate the timeline of events, and concentrate power at specific points to cause real disaster in the world. If you want to win the hardest runs and reach the most complex endings, mastering this single target burst combo is practically mandatory. It's the difference between merely surviving and really blowing the game apart in your hands. Creating zero-cost cards to cycle is absolutely necessary, and I see why it's considered the meta for high consistency in long runs. Basically, you're creating a rotation engine that allows you to play multiple cards per turn without worrying about mana. Personally, what charms me about this strategy is how it transforms the game's resource economy. Instead of counting mana and carefully choosing which card to play, you gain the freedom to trust your deck and simply cycle cards faster than the boss can react. The mechanical beauty here is that you aren't just accelerating the deck, but creating synergy with the game's enchantments and alchemical items. The tutorial itself mentions that you can use the Crystal of Truth to buy materials, craft at the Alchemy Table, and enchant your cards, temporarily altering their effects. This means that creating zero-cost cards is one of the smartest applications of this alchemy system, because you are using the game's resources to unlock a mechanic that completely changes the flow of battles. In long roguelike runs, where you face multiple bosses and complex events, consistency is everything, and zero-cost draw/cycle engines are exactly that. They ensure you never get stuck without good cards to play, that you always have options on your turn, and that you can adapt your strategy quickly as the enemy changes. It's as if you have a deck that recalibrates automatically, always delivering the card you need at the exact moment without relying on luck or spending precious mana. In the context of Witch's Apocalyptic journey as a cooperative roguelite with RPG elements, this zero-cost cycle strategy fits perfectly with the mechanic of creating unique supercards and manipulating the timeline of events. You are basically using the deck customization system to create an advantage that accumulates throughout the entire run. If you want to dominate the hardest runs, reach the most complex endings, and truly feel the power of a well-built witch squad, mastering this zero-cost cycle is essential. It's the difference between a deck that survives and a deck that dominates the game in your hands.
One of the most underrated things is how much the Alchemy Table can completely change the course of a run when you use it strategically. Many people pass it by or use it randomly, but when you start combining this with frequent visits to the witch's house, the game practically opens up a new layer of possibilities. It's not just about getting stronger, it's about shaping your deck in a way that it starts to run on its own. The witch's house enters as the key piece here because that's where the materials that really make the magic happen come from. These items aren't just simple buffs, they significantly alter the behavior of the cards. I've had runs where a mediocre card became the heart of the build just because of a well-chosen enchantment. This creates absurd freedom to test ideas without being stuck to standard builds. And the smartest point of this strategy is precisely the fact that these enchantments are temporary. This completely changes how you view risk within the game. Instead of spending crystals on permanent upgrades right away, you can use the Alchemy Table to test combinations, see what works, and only then invest for real. It's almost like a lab within the run itself.
Using the Witch's House along with the Alchemy Table isn't just a strong tip, it's a way to play better. You start to understand faster which synergies are worth it and avoid wasting permanent resources. If you start treating this as an essential part of your strategy, your runs will become much more consistent and, honestly, much more fun as well. Managing your deck with precision, removing useless cards instead of just filling it up, is the soul of any successful roguelike deck builder. And in Witch's Apocalyptic Journey, this makes all the difference between a run that flows and one that stalls. Personally, what strikes me is how many people make the basic mistake of thinking more cards equals more power, but the truth is that a lean deck is much stronger because every card you play has a real purpose and synergy with the others. The logic is simple, but brutal. When you remove strikes, defends, and weak cards, the deck gets faster, and you hit your strongest combos with much greater consistency. In a game where you need to create unique super cards, customize the deck with blank cards, and manipulate the timeline of events, having a focused deck means every turn has real potential to cause disaster in the world, not just wasted actions. It's like having a 4-member witch squad where each one has a defined role, not a messy group where no one knows what to do. What makes this strategy fundamental in almost every roguelike deck builder is that long runs require consistency, and consistency comes from eliminating noise. When you have fewer useless cards, the chance of drawing the card you need on a critical turn increases drastically. In Witch's Apocalyptic Journey, where you can change cards with relics, blessings, and alchemy, having a lean deck allows these upgrades to impact the cards you actually use much more, without wasting resources on cards that will just be discarded. This trimming the deck approach reflects the essence of the game as a cooperative roguelite with RPG elements. You aren't just playing cards, you are weaving the witch's destinies, and every card in the deck must contribute to that destiny, not be dead weight. If you want to win the hardest runs, reach the secret endings, and truly feel the power of a well-executed strategy, mastering this precise deck management, removing what is weak, keeping what is strong, is the basic skill that transforms good players into masters of the game. If there's one mechanic that separates average runs from truly solid ones in Witch's Apocalyptic Journey, it's the exhaust mechanic. At first, it just seems like another annoying effect, but when you reach harder routes or face bosses, you can really feel the impact. Suddenly, your perfect deck starts to fail because cards simply disappear, and if you aren't prepared, the run falls apart quickly. The point here is to understand that exhaust isn't just a debuff, it's direct pressure on your consistency. That's why I always try to build the deck already thinking about how I will keep playing even when I start losing cards. Drawing more cards per turn, generating extra resources, or even duplicating effects becomes almost mandatory. It's that mentality of, okay, they're going to take my options, so I need to create even more options. One thing that changed my runs quite a bit was starting to prioritize cards and effects that compensate for this loss. Anything that increases draw or recycles value throughout combat goes on my radar. Because it's no use having a strong deck on paper if against a boss with exhaust, you go 2 or 3 turns without being able to react. And in those moments, consistency is worth much more than raw damage. When you master this, the game changes. Those bosses that once seemed unfair start to become controllable because you no longer depend on a perfect flow of cards. You create a system that sustains itself even under pressure. And honestly, this is one of those tips that raises your level of play without needing luck. It's just about understanding the mechanic and adapting better than the game expects. Adapting your strategy based on relics and blessings is absolutely fundamental in Witch's Apocalyptic Journey. And what I like most is how it reveals that cards are only part of your real power. Often we get obsessed with building the perfect deck, but we forget that relics focused on specific styles and blessings that amplify crucial attributes are what really define whether your run will shine or fail. The mechanical beauty of this is that you aren't just playing cards randomly, you are building an intentional archetype, where each relic and blessing works in synergy with your unique supercards to create a clear game identity. In a game that allows you to customize the witch's daily schedule, create blank supercards with your own magical combinations, and manipulate karma through fate cards, having a well-defined archetype means every choice has purpose and direction. What makes this strategy so powerful is that relics and blessings are what differentiate a generic run from a specialized one. When you combine your deck with relics that reinforce your style, be it burst, cycle, control, or defense, and collect blessings that amplify exactly the attributes your archetype needs, you create a coherent war machine. It's like having a 4-member witch squad where each one has equipment and buffs that enhance their specific role, not an uncoordinated group where no one knows what the real strategy is. In the context of Witch's Apocalyptic Journey as a cooperative roguelite with deep RPG elements, this adaptation based on relics and blessings is what separates players who just survive from those who truly master the game. You are intentionally weaving the witch's destinies using every resource in the game, cards, relics, blessings, alchemy, timeline, to create an archetype that is truly devastating. If you want to reach the most complex endings, win the hardest runs, and feel the real power of a well-executed strategy, mastering this adaptation based on relics and blessings is essential, because this is what defines the archetype along with your supercards and transforms a good deck into a legendary one. Managing HP at Campfires is that type of detail that seems simple, but completely changes the efficiency of your run. In the beginning, there's a huge urge to heal whenever possible, just to play safe. But in practice, this ends up holding you back because you start relying on campfires as a crutch instead of viewing them as a strategic resource. When you start planning your routes better, you realize that every heal used unnecessarily is a missed opportunity. Campfires compete with other events that can give you better cards, relics, or even unique advantages for your deck. So if you can maintain your HP through good combat decisions, you open up space for much more growth throughout the run. I usually think like this: it's only worth healing if there's a real risk of dying in the next few encounters. Other than that, it's much more valuable to invest in other options and trust your deck build to keep you alive. This forces you to play better, avoid unnecessary damage, and value block and control instead of trading life for progress. Saving heals at Campfires transforms your run into something much more consistent and rewarding. You gain access to more positive events and create an accumulative advantage that makes a difference down the line. It's a change of mentality that seems small, but when it clicks, it makes the game flow much more in your favor. The combination of supercards with fate planning creates a space of possibilities so vast that you can actually build infinite zero-cost loops, multi-trigger enchantments that activate multiple times per turn, or complete status stacks that make your witches absolutely devastating. What makes this approach so powerful is that since it's a roguelite, death isn't a failure. It's a requirement to explore and discover what is possible. When you die a lot testing broken builds, you lose nothing because the super cards you created persist between runs, and unlocks come naturally with the progress of each journey. It's as if the game tells you, go ahead, experiment, break the rules, die a lot, because each death makes you stronger and more prepared for the run that will really dominate the world. The mechanical beauty of this is that you're using the game's deepest customization system, creating blank supercards with your own magical combinations, replacing cards you don't want in your deck, manipulating karma through fate cards, and organizing the timeline of events as you wish to discover combinations that most players never test. Infinite zero-cost loops, enchantments that trigger multiple times per turn, status stacks that amplify damage or defense to absurd values. All of this is possible when you have the courage to experiment with what seems broken. In the end, this strategy of exploring broken builds perfectly reflects the essence of Witch's apocalyptic journey as a cooperative roguelite with RPG elements. You aren't just playing, you are weaving the Witch's destinies, creating your own path through the chaos. And each run, even those that end in death, teaches you something new that will make your next journey more powerful. If you want to reach the most complex endings, win the hardest runs, and truly feel the power of a truly broken build, embracing this radical experimentation mentality is essential. It's the difference between playing the game and mastering the game in your own hands, creating strategies that no one else can imagine.